Welcome to Flyover Conservative Podcast with David and Stacy Whited, where we break down current events and examine culture through the lens of conservative Christian values.
One of the biggest benefits of doing this show over the last 2 years is the opportunity to meet incredible people, both as guests on the show and then when we're at live events, getting to meet speakers. We do our booth at all the Reawaken events in different places. We get short little interviews with people and you meet them, they come through, but some stand out.
That's so
You're
true.
like, I want more.
Yep.
It's like persevere to go like Costco, one of these places, and they give you a sample, and you're like,
where do you get the bag
was pretty
of that?
good. Then they'll have, broccoli or something. I'm good without that.
Thank you.
But they give out, like a little shrimp or something. You're like, I want more of that. Today's guest is that for me. He's Costco sample. You always want more of. He wrote a book that I think is one of the best things to come out in the conservative Christian space over the last few years called Counterpunch. And we're going to be diving into that a little bit today with Mr. Floyd Brown.
David, Stacy, it's always a great honor and pleasure to be with you on Flyover.
Thank you, Floyd. It's truly a pleasure to have you. You were talking about standing up. Man. Floyd, how tall are you, by the way? You've got to be, 6'5" at least?
I'm 6'6".
6'6".
Man.
You definitely stand out. You cannot miss you for sure.
There's something about that, I think. I'm 5'10", and I'll kind of round up. I'm like maybe 5'10" and a quarter. I kind of, but I'm like the most average dude ever. I'm probably average intelligence. I'm average height. I'm probably average weight. I'm like the most, I think above average is like my work ethic. I'll just kind of show up early. You got a good perspective there. But I always feel like such a shrimp at these events because like Eric Trump, he's got to be 6 something, and Joe Hoff is probably
he's
same
tall too,
6 something. It's like I'm like
tall.
Yeah.
So I'm like the littlest guy in the conservative movement, I think for sure. If there was like a conservative patriot pickup basketball league, we would dominate. We would dominate the leftists for sure.
But people never know the trouble of being tall. First of all, I wanted to go to the Naval Academy and be a pilot. I was too tall. I couldn't be a pilot. Yes. And so I bumped my head a lot. It might be why I have some of my beliefs because I bump my head a lot.
But you can reach all the top shelves. You have no problem with the overhead storage bins on plane. There's a lot of upsides.
Yeah, you can see. You're never in a place you can't see.
Try flying Southwest when you're as big as I am.
True. You'd have to be like one of the first ones to get on, so you could get a seat like right towards the front where you got a little more
space.
You
got to be that Southwest first class. Where you're the A boarding group.
And then all the people walk on and they say, "That guy's too big. I don't want to sit by him."
Everything's got a trade-off,
Definitely.
for sure. One thing it doesn't have a trade-off is when you subscribe to the Western Journal, because it is all upsides.
It is.
And as much as people complain about mainstream media and this is out there, and you guys do such a great job of covering things. And I'm not even going to say you're necessarily fair and balanced because you're all truth.
Yeah.
Which balanced kind of implies, well, we tell part of this narrative and part of that narrative. No, you tell call balls and strikes on, and you'll call out people, on rhinos and different things. Like you're always speaking out, doing good things. Talk about the importance of a media outlet like yours today and the ability to be able to speak out and to kind of put your thumb on the scale a little bit to at least there is truth. It's not all Washington Post. It's not all New York Times. That there is a source.
Yeah, well, first of all, the Bible teaches that my people perish for a lack of knowledge.
Yep.
And that's kind of the inspiration of Western Journal is that verse because, we live in a time of false narratives. And, we could sit and talk about false narratives all day long, from Donald Trump is a Russian spy to the jab is going to keep you from getting COVID to, we could just go through false narratives all day long. And these false narratives really can only be answered by truth. And so we lead into the truth. We work really hard to make sure, there is fake news on the right. In addition to the left.
Sure.
And so we work really hard to make sure there's no fake news. I know, my mother will call me up every once in a while and she'll say, "Now, why haven't you covered that story on Western Journal?"
Your mother.
And I'll say, "Mom, it's because it's fake news, and we're not going to cover fake news. But I thought that was true.
You hope it's true sometimes. There's sometimes we'll bring stuff to our producer and we're like, all right, Colton, can you look this up and
he's a
actually
great
see if it's
researcher.
legit? He's such a great researcher because sometimes it's like, I really hope that is true because I want it to be true. And he'll come back and be like, no, wishful thinking, but that's not accurate. And that's true. When you go to Western Journal, you know it's a resource that you can trust and that you are going to get truth from that source.
One of our listeners sent me this the other day. I love our listeners, man. These guys are awesome. It says, if you can't read it, it says, that is fake news. And it's got this rotating.
This fake news was indeed fake news.
I don't know if you can even hear it, but it's got this rotating thing of Donald Trump.
You don't want fake news. You're CNN. You're fake news. All I can say is it's totally fake news. You are fake news.
I love it.
That is such a great thing.
One of the best things he did as president was bring to the public's knowledge this whole idea of fake news.
Yeah.
Because until Donald Trump, we were all swallowing, or a lot of us were swallowing, ABC, NBC, CBS, and now we know it's all fake news.
Yeah.
And there's been a mass exodus from television news to podcasts like yours, where people can find real truth. And I think that exodus is a good thing for America. It's a good thing
President
for the
Trump,
First Amendment.
True.
President Trump was incredible at impacting culture, which hasn't been necessarily a conservative, patriot, right-wing, Republican, kind of a thing. Typically, culture has been determined by the left, but culture is always upstream from policy. But he had this ability, even before politics, with his shows and language. He was always, our son was talking, he's looking at clips this weekend of Mike Tyson from back. He goes, Donald Trump was always around, he was at the front edge of what was happening. And it's interesting, even a term like fake news. It's infiltrated our language. Everybody uses it. We have two dogs, and they'll run to the door. They're like, what's going on? I'm like, there better be somebody there. If I get up and I go to the door, and it's just some soccer mom had been walking by, and I call my dogs fake news all the time. I got a 3-year-old granddaughter. She'll start. There's Tyson with Trump. He was at the front of culture. My granddaughter's 3. She'll come in and be jabbering about something, and she'll just go off on words. I'm like, you're fake news. I have no idea what you're talking about. There's a lot of words, no purpose, no meaning. You are fake news. But he got that into our language.
He did.
Yeah. Well, and you are seeing for the first time conservatives really penetrating the culture. And you see it with Sound of Freedom, this movie that's Mission Impossible and Indiana Jones. And it's really such a great story, and it's well told, and it's a great movie. And yet, it also helps to help people understand what's been going on at the border, and lets people understand what goes on with human trafficking and why a lot of us have been so upset about it for so long, but people didn't know the bigger story. And so it's exposing those stories. That shows things are changing. And really, I credit Donald Trump for helping a lot of this by setting a new foundation that allows us, the country music, country music is finally really, breaking out. And then to also see kind of the flip side of it with it, which is these Bud Lights who have destroyed a brand by pushing into woke too far, or Target. I remember a day when my wife and we used to shop at Target.
Yep.
We won't go there anymore. Nope. We're voting with our dollars. And so as these people get exposed, and Donald Trump really has been at the leading edge of that. And that's why I think so many of us really appreciate what he did as president. And, a lot of us would really like to see him come back again.
No doubt about it. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on right now with Joe Biden, because more and more information is coming out over the weekend. Obviously, you got the Hunter Biden situation. You've got his business partner, Devin, who is going to be testifying against him about multiple times that Joe Biden was around when, and even on the phone when Hunter Biden was making phone calls when it came to Burisma. So interesting thing there. And then even in Western Journal this weekend, you had an article that came out about Hunter Biden's attorney actually smoking a bong right there on his at his place. I mean, that's crazy.
I don't think I've ever heard you say bong before.
I know. I don't know if I have.
The closest I've ever say is gong, like the Gong Show.
Yeah,
Say
but
gong,
no,
which
a
probably
bong.
that probably dates us as well.
Yeah. So crazy stuff going on. Tell us what are your thoughts on all this?
Some of this it's so wild. It's hard to even believe it's real.
Yeah.
But you're right. What we now know is that definitively the election of 2020 was rigged, and it was rigged by a group of insiders, globalists inside the U.S. government that protected Joe Biden and attacked Donald Trump and didn't do their jobs. And so, we now know that this Biden laptop is exactly what we were told weeks before the election. And we know that that was suppressed by the government, by the intelligence agencies, by the FBI, by the CIA. The story was suppressed. They went to big tech and they pushed big tech to suppress it. So, the New York Post that broke the story and did fabulous reporting, they were even, I think, kicked off the social media platforms. Mm-hmm. Their Twitter account was shut down. It was the grossest form of censorship. It was a constitutional violation because the government was involved in the silencing. See, a private company, they can silence anybody they want. But the U.S. government is not allowed to because we have a thing called the Constitution and we have a thing called the First Amendment, which allows us to speak our minds. And it even allows us to speak our minds when we're wrong. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, in this case, we were right. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, his brother, they're all involved in what essentially is a criminal enterprise, an influence peddling scheme by which they sold favors for government policy. And specifically, we now know that Hunter was paid $5 million, Joe Biden was paid $5 million in order to intervene in Ukraine and get that prosecutor that was looking into the corruption of Burisma, the company where Hunter Biden served on the board, looking into corruption. He was fired as a result of it. So we know definitively, first, that the election was rigged, but also that the Bidens are a criminal enterprise. And therefore, the Republicans, and David and Stacey, this is one of the things I've been really honing in on lately, must move for impeachment immediately. Yeah. The truth is that they impeached Donald Trump over a phone call to Ukraine. And now we know that Joe Biden has actually been involved in corruption in connection with Ukraine. And if he's not impeached immediately, it is the Republicans, the uniparty, protecting Joe Biden. And then we ought to know all of these uniparty people should be gone. Yep. So that's it. That's all I have to say about it.
Well, so what is the next step on that? Because you have the Ukrainian gas executive who is now saying, "Hey, I was pressured heavy, had to pay $5 million here, $5 million here."
Right,
and it all ties back to the very public confession that Joe Biden made about the whole. I told him you're not getting the $1 billion unless you do this. Like, it all syncs up, and that's exactly how the narrative went out.
This is a classic example of extortion.
Yeah,
it's extortion, pure and simple. And but the worst part of it is now that it's all exposed in all its tawdry details, and we know it all, that the FBI is still protecting this family.
Yeah,
I mean, why isn't there a grand jury convened? Why isn't Hunter Biden in shackles? I mean, and then, that's not even talking about all of the pornographic material that is on this laptop him cavorting with girls below the age of consent. And it's outrageous. Him cavorting with prostitutes. I mean, and engaged
and
in
taking
the
and
worst
declaring it
kind
as a
of-
deduction on his taxes.
I was going to actually bring that up. So you have these 3-letter agencies like the IRS, you've got the DOJ, you've got all of these that are like not doing anything in this. What's your thought on 3-letter agencies, and what's the future look like for
a
them?
$10,000 club membership. You come to find out it's just for prostitutions. I mean, we'll do this a lot. I'm like, hey, we're getting, I have 3 cards I keep in my wallet. I got a business and another business and a personal. And I'm like, hey, we're getting ready to get this. I'm like,
no, that's not a business
that's
expense.
personal. It's kind of, we're going to use it for business a lot, but I know where they're going to look at it. All right. And like we'll make those decisions. Like we don't even touch the line. If it's close, it's like, hey, there it is.
That's personal.
And like, these are real things. These are like also legal activities.
Yeah, but that's because you have integrity, okay? And what we've seen is that these leaders, this Biden family, totally lacks integrity. And I can tell you, Hunter didn't come by this moral code in a vacuum. He learned it from his father. Sure. And every time I see his father lean over and sniff a child, I just want to get sick because this man has real problems. We already know the story of Tara Reid, who, says Joe Biden raped her. And, there's been, we know
his own daughter's diary. His own daughter's diary. She has to go to rehab because she had developed so many mental and emotional issues from being in this family. And his own daughter says he took inappropriate showers with her, as she grew up. It's like, it's just a giant steaming dumpster fire of corruption. Right. Like it's mafia level stuff with Hunter Biden being the bag man going around doing the collections. So you're exactly right. There's going to be, for me, here's a litmus test. Republicans, we could show these things all day. It's just weird. And the parents are creeped out and it's just weird. You chewing on a kid's shoulder last weekend. It's just consistently weird. Mitch McConnell sitting right behind him. Just, this is great.
And that's the problem. That's the problem. The problem is the Republicans. The Republicans' failure to be tough and to hold people like Biden accountable. And they want to be everybody's friend. And a lot of this, I believe, has to do with the fact that they enjoy the perks of Washington, D.C., and they're sitting in the same hot tub with the Bidens, and they don't want somebody like a Donald Trump to come in and shut off all their perks. They're protecting themselves. And, in my book, I talk a lot about what I call the wealth extraction machine. And that is our government has been turned on the middle class. Okay. We now have these multiple areas of the economy, the military industrial complex, the pharmaceutical industrial complex, the big tech media complex, and these big complexes. What the real problem with them is that they run policies through DC that destroy the middle class. For example, COVID policy is one of the best examples I talk about in the book. And what happened there? We had a policy that minted 40 new billionaires. 40 new billionaires as a result of COVID policy. Yep. What did they do? They suppressed therapeutics. They suppressed things like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. Yep. And those were $3 a dose, right? And they were extremely inexpensive. And thank God they worked, because I took ivermectin and it was like a miracle drug for me when I had COVID.
Sure.
And yet the policy of government was to have the government pay for everybody to get this untested shot, but that money that flowed out of the government flowed into the fingers of billionaires. Yep. And so it was all about minting money for the elite. And the Ukraine war is another example.
Clearly.
I mean, what are we doing? We are just feathering the bed of the military industrial complex, the people that make all these munitions, while at the same time we're allowing 300,000 Ukrainians to die. It's just an evil policy. One of the false narratives I talk about is, quote, we were making progress in Afghanistan. For 19 of the 20 years we were there, every year they told us we're making progress in Afghanistan. Well, what kind of progress did we ever make in Afghanistan? I would say zero. What did we do? We made a lot of people really rich because they benefited from these policies out of the government. And so
on the left and the right.
Yeah, and so that's what the uniparty protects. Big tech. I know big tech personally because in 2016, I had 11 billion times I was in the Facebook newsfeed from Western Journal. It led to over 1 billion page views in 2016. Wow. In 2017, I was utterly taken down a full 90% by Mark Zuckerberg and the titans at Facebook.
Why did people lose interest in reading Western Journal all of a sudden?
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
out of the blue.
So I went to Capitol Hill because I had worked on Capitol Hill. Remember, I was a staff member up there. I knew how the system worked, and I knocked on doors. I went all through the Rayburn building knocking on doors, and I went all through the Hart building knocking on doors. And I went and met with these staff members, and nobody wanted to do a thing because the truth was, even people on the Freedom Caucus were getting a whole lot of money from Google, and they don't want to stop that money flow.
Man, is that what made you decide to write your book, Counterpunch?
Well, actually, I wrote my last book was called Big Tech Tyrants, and that's what got me writing that. But yeah, no, Counterpunch for me, I really wrote that book because of the Reawaken tour. If you go to the first part of the book, it starts in Tulsa. And I can't remember, were you in Tulsa for the first?
Just sitting in the nosebleeds watching.
Yep, just watching.
Okay. So I think I did 12 of the 18 that we did when we were on that massive march. I didn't make it to all of them, but I made it to a lot of them to speak. And every time I went, people said to me, Floyd, what can I do? Mm-hmm. How can I be a part of the solution? And I wrote this book to give people ideas on what they could do, because the truth is that everybody underestimates the amount of power they have right around themselves, in their neighborhood, in their town, in their county. And if they start to step out and exercise that power, then they can have real impact on their communities. And I wanted to encourage our people to get out and re-engage and to lean into what they can do. Because as we take back America, and I absolutely believe we're going to take back America, the way we do it is by starting at the local level and building out and then taking over the country as a result of taking county after county. There's 3,100 counties in America, and 3,000 of those should be conservative counties. Yeah. And the reason they aren't is because often we don't show up. Christians, conservatives don't show up. Christians could control America like this if they chose to do it. They don't choose to do it because over half of Christians aren't even registered. And then on top of that, of the half that are registered, only half of those vote. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable. And yet we are taught in Scripture that it is our job to occupy and to be involved in our communities and to, be there for our fellow man, and we are missing the boat. There's a heresy that's run wild in the American church, and that is, quote, there's a separation between church and state.
Come on.
No. When I became a Christian, God governed every part of my life. Yep. He governed my personal life. He governed my family life. He governed my business. He governed how I vote and what I do in the political arena. Jesus Christ renewed my mind and took it all over, every last bit of it. Man. And that's just, in the American church, that's not taught anymore. Instead, it's become like a life support system for lukewarm Christians, and that's coming to an end though, because as persecution grows, we're going to see who the real Christians are, and we're going to see where the real churches are, and as it gets darker, we're going to get brighter and lighter. And I'm excited about that.
Yes.
Amen. It's so interesting because when we started Flyover Conservatives, the Lord gave us a slogan: wake up, speak up, and show up. And that's exactly what your book is doing, teaching us how to do that. Flyover family, when you go to westernjournal.com, if you subscribe to the Western Journal, if you're not yet
Which
a
you should
subscriber, you actually will get a free book that Floyd will sign for you.
Signed.
Exactly.
By Floyd, not by like some redneck like me.
No.
Like somebody who knows something.
You actually get it signed by the author, Floyd. So go to westernjournal.com. If you're not yet a subscriber, you can get the book there. Or you can also go to Amazon for the book as well. So Counterpunch. Thank you so much.
I'd go to Western Journal and get the free one.
Definitely.
I'm not an economist, but that's a better move.
Yep. So Floyd, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for everything that you're doing to help to save our country. We really appreciate it.
There is no reasonable doubt that President Biden was an active participant in an unlawful international influence peddling scheme. My name is Lieutenant General Mike Flynn, and whatever you may think about President Donald J. Trump or his recent federal indictment, the speed of the investigation and the breadth of the indictment is breathtaking compared to the inaction for comparable crimes allegedly committed by Hillary Clinton.
We did not find clear evidence.
The incredible slow walking of the investigation of Hunter Biden, and Attorney General Merrick Garland's refusal to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate Joe Biden's role in the Biden family's international influence peddling scheme. Does any reasonable human being believe that Joe never discussed Hunter's business with Hunter, or that Joe did not know anything about a scheme that so far has ensnared at least 9 close Biden family relatives? It was reported recently that Hunter will plead guilty to 2 tax misdemeanors and defer a gun reporting offense with no prison time, and the right to have his record partially expunged after 2 years. Good thing Hunter is a white dude, and oh yeah, being the son of a president also helps. It's not just a stark contrast between use of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, to go after 5 Trump associates, including yours truly, before FARA is ignored when exploring Hunter's activities for Ukraine and China, or the contrast between aggressive prosecutions of pro-life protesters compared to the pass given to abortion rights protesters, or the horribly disproportionate treatment of January 6 protesters compared to the left-wing protesters who destroyed billions of dollars of property and killed more than 24 Americans. Rather, it is all of these things. Either Democrats, Republicans, progressives, conservatives, and centrists should be subject to equally fierce investigations and prosecutions, or they should all be subject to neither. Either we have the rule of law or not. With the provision that every American is entitled to a presumption of innocence, unless of course you're a conservative who supports Trump, and much of what is known of the Biden family crime organization is alleged, there is powerful evidence that Joe Biden committed multiple felonies as a co-conspirator in an international Biden family fraud and racketeering scheme, regardless of whether he personally received bribes or not. This isn't over, and Americans of every stripe, faith, and class better wake up to the fact that we have 2 completely different sets of laws in America.
I'm looking for partners, collaborators, colleagues who want to join forces with me around the globe and create real value, generational wealth, and financial freedom for everyone else around the world. Get involved in the cryptocurrency markets, get involved in the NFT markets. This is your moment. Life all comes down to a few moments. Don't let this pass. Now it's not too late. Next year's going to be too late. Ultimately, this is about freedom. That's the way I see it. This is about giving power back to the people and enabling billions of people worldwide to use the financial markets to improve their lives and those of their friends and their families and their communities. Honestly, I think it's a violation of human rights not to allow people basic access to financial services. Because right now people are being kept in the dark, they're being robbed of education, and it's a travesty. And so I'm looking for people that want to join me and be a part of this solution. And that all happens inside the DeFi Academy. The gains my students are making are absolutely amazing. Double, triple digit gains in the first month alone. That's amazing. This will change your life. Now is the time to get involved. I'm going to tell you exactly how my students in my academy made money in the last 30 days. I'm talking about real trading results. And let me just whet your appetite a little bit. Let me hit you with some numbers. I'm talking Brendan from New Zealand is up 68.77% on the month. Steve from Europe up 83%. Albert in Singapore up 169.9% on one single trade. I got Susan up 153% on her call options alone, also rocking 139% returns and 442% returns as well on individual trades. These are people that are changing their financial future in the last 30 days, but it's based on trading discipline.
I've graduated over 500 students from inside my academy from over 54 countries around the world. It's amazing. When it comes to crypto, DeFi, and blockchain, we love this space. We truly believe it's the future. This is down to our core. It's authentic to what we're doing, and everybody can tell through the camera because you can't make this stuff up.
If you're watching me now, wherever you are, I implore you, take 60 seconds right now and join my academy. Apply today. Now you've got a chance. Life all comes down to a few moments. What are you going to do? What's the choice that you're going to make?